Hello everyone, welcome to Profit Notes. 2026 is surely a year of changes. Even Profit Notes got some changes with the new logo as well as the animation for your video. It's pretty cool because I managed to do all of this using AI. And yes, AI will be one of the 10 predictions, but the focus this year will surely be on geopolitics. I think we are entering a very interesting year when it comes to global events. And I think that such exercises was very good, because last year's 10 predictions showed me where my mind was at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year, and I think it's really helpful in the job of a forecaster to see how your thinking around the world revolves. So yep, I've got some interesting predictions around the Western Hemisphere, the Ukraine conflict, as well as the new Fed chair and AI, among other things. So hop on and let's see what the world can look like in the next 12 months. And my first prediction is centered around Venezuela, and it's about Miguel Diaz-Canel. And I think that what Trump did in Venezuela, so kidnapping Maduro, trying to pressure the Chavista regime to actually accommodate for the US policy, one of the main consequences of this will be the fall of the Cuban regime. The reason here is pretty simple. Majority of Cuban oil demand was fulfilled by Venezuela, and since Maduro was kidnapped, the United States doesn't allow any crude shipment to actually reach Cuba from Venezuela. So I think that without oil, the regime days are numbered. And while I don't see a proper regime change operation or some kind of a civil war, I think there will be a negotiated transition with the government of the United States. I think that the new Cuban government will be more likely to work with the US, or at least accommodate for some security concerns, as well as some trade pressures. And I do see it happening in the next 12 months because the situation in Cuba was already pretty dire. I also know that at least one person in the administration, which is Marco Rubio, is really keen on actually toppling the regime. So I think finally, after 60 years, the stars aligned, and there is a real chance that we can see some change in Cuba. Looking at the odds on Polymarket here, I tend to agree with them, so I don't see this happening before in the first 6 months, before the end of June. But I do see it happening by the end of the year. And I do think here that 49% is a bit low. I'll put it rather around 55-60% at the moment. So this is probably a pretty good buy I should consider, and I probably will. But moving along, my second prediction is also around Venezuela, and this is about the leader of Venezuela. So while at least currently it seems that Delcy Rodriguez, so the current president, is managing different groups of interest in the country and keeping them fairly stable, I don't see her succeeding in doing this till the end of the year. And this prediction is also connected to Cubans, because it is now well known that Cuban security forces were keeping the Chavista regime in check. You could also read it in my article about the regime change in Venezuela that I put out in November. Cuban security forces are part of the deal between the two governments. So the deal is pretty simple. Venezuela sends oil to Cuba, and Cuba sends security and professional staff like doctors to Venezuela. So both countries can benefit from each other. And ever since Trump kidnapped Maduro, this deal is over. So pretty soon I can imagine that all of the Cuban security forces that are in Venezuela and were up to this date keeping the regime in check, they will either go back to Cuba or they will just disappear into the wild because they would no longer have the backing from the government. And then I see pure chaos because the one element that was keeping everything in check will suddenly disappear. But even if we don't get a situation like this, I do think that there are a lot more people in Venezuela that will try to get the power. Delcy Rodriguez is probably weak now. She tries to align the interest, and in the days and weeks ahead, it will be more and more difficult because a lot of this interest is centered around illegal trade, with be it drugs, be it human trafficking, weapons. So as the days, weeks, and months go by, the US will pressure Venezuela more and more, and it will be more and more difficult to keep everyone happy enough not to riot. And sooner or later, we will have a lot of volatility on this market. So, as it stands today, I have some notes on Delcy Rodriguez, but I don't have anyone here that's my favorite to take the power. I do think we'll see a lot of volatility. There are a lot of people that can swing for the top chair if they really want it. I don't think any of those people are Maria Corina Machado or Edmundo Gonzalez because they don't actually have the firepower to do it. I do see them. I do see the opposition leading at some point in the future if a democratic revolution ever happens. But in the shorter term, so till the end of the year, any person that takes power in Venezuela should be strong and should have some kind of arms behind them. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much enough on Venezuela. I don't think, at least for now, we can say anything more here. And I will do probably an update on the future of Venezuela once we will have some more clarity around the situation. Okay. Moving next, I do think that we will see more changes in South America, but I don't see that all of them would be military because the ultimate aim of the Trump administration is to make every country in North and South America aligned with the US. And why do it with a military force when you can do it during elections? So this year we'll have elections in Colombia, and as the current president is a very left-wing president that doesn't really see eye to eye with Trump, I do see Trump administration meddling in this election. I do see them endorsing certain candidates, and I do think that the odds that we are presented with here are pretty accurate at the moment because Abelardo de Espriella, I have no idea how to read this name, but he's a far right candidate as far as I know, and he's already a favorite to win. I can only imagine that he will see eye to eye with Trump. He will align his country with America. This kind of the same as happened with Milei in Argentina, and Colombia will become another country that changed sides and or finally chose sides and moved towards towards the U.S. Moving next, and this is the last prediction on Western Hemisphere, I promise, is that I see some kind of a deal being struck between the US and either Denmark or Greenland. And the reason here is pretty simple. Like, it is true that Greenland is important for US security. It is true that Greenland is crucial when it comes to the Arctic, and it is true that there are a lot of resources in Greenland. But I don't think that anyone in Trump administration, including Trump, really wants to take care of this whole island for the foreseeable future. I don't see them annexing it. I don't see them taking it by a military force. It's just too much of a mess for something that could be done by a simple deal. And I don't really think this will be like a sale. I think what we will see is Trump, so the Trump administration and Denmark signing a bilateral security agreement on security of Greenland that will allow the United States military to have unlimited entry, like approval to host large forces, to build new bases, maybe even throw in some kind of special zone, some kind of a deal on the minerals, because Trump loves deals on minerals, and this will be pretty much it. Then we'll see some kind of new developments there, but nothing really crazy. But the topic will die out. Like, there is now a lot of pressure from Trump administration and Trump himself. There are talks about annexation, sending the military. I think that's just posturing. I think they don't really want the mess associated with a military invasion and alienating one of the top allies, which is Denmark. Even if Denmark is not really militarily strong, they control the exit from the Baltic, and this pretty much in the US interest to actually have a pretty good relations with them. So I don't have a market here for the end of the year because I do think that March 31st is a pretty steep deadline. So I wouldn't really back these chances, but I definitely would buy yes by the end of the year, probably in 50s, even 60s, even low 70s, depending on the reporting in the next few weeks. And moving away from the Western Hemisphere, uh, Russia and Ukraine ceasefire by the end of 2026. I think this is now 2025, and a lot has changed since my previous prediction that we'll see no peace. I do think there is now a path towards at least a prolonged ceasefire, but I do think that kind of everyone wants to make this deal, and by everyone I mean Russia, Ukraine, and the US, because like, if there is one country or region that doesn't want a deal at the moment, it's Europe, and it's understandable because for them any deal that is struck now or in the next few months doesn't really meet their security requirements vis-a-vis Russia. But as it stands, Europe cannot commit to really defend Ukraine because they couldn't really agree to use frozen Russian assets to finance it. At the same time, Ukraine is losing men, is losing territory, and is losing morale. Like Zelensky almost fell a few months ago due to the corruption scandal. The situation reached Yermak. He resigned, but he was the right-hand man of Zelensky, so we can see how close it was to actually really shake the ground under the regime of Zelensky. But this situation showed us that it isn't so golden in Ukraine, and the society is tired, this government is tired, the military is tired, and there is a room to make a deal if the society can agree to cede some territory. And since the end of last year, we have a lot of progress. We have Europe kind of agreeing on some kind of security forces. We've got Russia that is not so maximalist in their demands. Now we've got Trump that is somewhat fair to both sides, I would say. The options that are on the table are neither pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. They're pretty fair, and if some of the next predictions I'm making are really true, I think it will be beneficial to everyone to actually end this conflict for a bit. So I do see not a certainty, but elevated chances of a ceasefire by the end of the year. I think those odds are pretty low, but at the same time, this is a long dated market, so probably unwise to lock yourself in for a prolonged period of time unless we get some more details around the possible deal. Moving next, I struggled to find a proper market for it, but I would take US strikes on Somalia as some proxy on what can happen in 2026 and beyond, because as we have as we could have Ukraine peace, as we have the Gaza peace, I think both Russian, Chinese, and so the Team East and Team West interests should lie somewhere in Africa. Africa is a pretty interesting continent because there are a lot of resources, a lot of people, a lot of trade routes run next to it, and it used to be under European control, pretty much. But since the colonial times, and Europe's pretty much exit from having colonies, the region was kind of forgotten and then riddled with Chinese BRI debt, with Russian forces, some military juntas that were supported by Russian or Chinese regimes. And the situation in Africa is pretty difficult because there are some nations in the south that are more independent but are pressured with by military that is supported by Russia and China. From the north, there are some deals around minerals, rare earths, Chinese mines, Russian mines. It's not something that is pretty much optimal for Team West, especially since this new Cold War that we are in is about competition with resources. So, along with some conflicts ending, Israel recognizing Somaliland, US doing strikes on Somalia, uh, UAE supporting forces in South Sudan, and also UAE and Saudi Arabia trying to get the pole position in Yemen. I think there is something happening starting from East Africa, where Team West has more allies because we have Kenya, we have proximity of Egypt, of Israel, of Saudi Arabia. So starting from East Africa, I see Team West doing some activities aiming at taking back control of sub-Saharan Africa. And pretty much it also happens from the other side because on Christmas we get strikes, US strikes on Nigeria, and I don't think they're only about ISIS. I think they're also about having Nigeria as an ally on the west side to also counter any moves that are originating on the west. So essentially, I see, and it may not happen entirely in 2026, I see it also going way, way beyond this year, that we will have Israel, possibly the US, and even some European countries deploying forces in Africa, in both West and East Africa, to counter Russian and Chinese moves in the region. Moving next is the midterms, and while predicting today what will happen by the end of the year is pretty difficult. I'll risk a prediction that we will have a razor thin margin, but we will have a Republican Senate and the House. I think that currently, at the moment, people are a bit underestimating Trump and the Republican Party. I think the odds really went down here somewhere around the Epstein files. And while I do see them as important in this year's campaign, I'm sure we'll have a lot of information about Epstein flowing around the campaign, the accusation going both ways, the usual American politics. But I think the importance of them is being misjudged. I think we'll see a lot more situations, both good and bad, for both parties. So, for example, the kidnapping of Maduro was a net positive for Trump, which in effect is a net positive for Republicans. But we might as well see the actions on the other side. When I see some domestic protests, as we saw in Minneapolis recently, and I generally see a lot of tension. But I do see Republicans being very determined to keep control, and I do see a chance of it happening. So I'll dare a prediction here that we will get a Republican House and a Republican Senate after the midterms this year. Going next, I do believe we'll see a lot of turmoil in the Fed, and this is because like trial or no trial or accusations no accusations against Powell, we will see a new chair this year, and this new chair will have one task only, which is to bring the interest rates as far down as possible, building a consensus inside the Fed. And it's no easy task, especially since the Fed is basically fighting for its independence, but it is possible to lower the rates even lower. So like there's 94% chance we'll see 3.25. I think we'll go a lot lower. 73% chance for 2.785. Like this is going 1 percentage point below where we are today. I think the aim is to go even probably to 2.25, possibly even lower. Uh, it really depends on who will get in the Fed, but I do see even 2.5% being a good bet here at 39% chances. I think these are probably closer to 45, 50. Like ultimately, the goal of Trump administration is to lower the rates. It's been no secret since he took office, and his enormous pressure on Powell as well as the whole committee, for example, by trying to get rid of Lisa Cook, is just indicative of how important it is to Trump and how much pressure we'll still see in 2026 about the race. Because whatever happens, is Hassett or Walsh or Waller or whoever ends up being the chair, they will have extremely difficult time pushing the whole committee to actually commit to significantly lower rates. And staying a bit with finance, uh, I figure I can do one prediction about crypto, and it's not entirely connected to charts or crypto demand or whatever. I do just think that starting this year, we'll hear a lot more about stablecoins. With the Genius Act passed, I think USD stablecoins will become a very important part of American financial system. They will probably become at some point the preferred method of transfer, and the US will really push for it to also push for demand for long-term bonds. And pretty much, I feel that the usage of the stable coins will be enough to sustain at least sustain prices in the blue chip crypto. So I don't really think we should see a big downward swing in Bitcoin as well as Ethereum, uh, because it's not like the previous cycle when the bull market finished and the bear market started. Pretty much every normie forgot about crypto existence, and everyone working in crypto or trying to build in crypto was just trying to sustain the winter before the next bull run. Uh, Now the interest in crypto will be sustained because we've got the ETFs both on Ether and Bitcoin. We've got the stablecoin regulation. We've got Polymarket that is also on Polygon right now and is also sustaining pretty high volumes that will be even higher. So I do feel that this cycle will be different. And while some altcoins will definitely go down 80% or even to zero, I think that we are in a time where we won't see as big a drawdown as we used to see on the blue chip side of the cryptocurrency industry. And then moving to prediction number 10, which is AI that we started with, I think I think the whole AI race is a bit misunderstood at the moment. I don't think anyone now is trying to build AGI. Like this is maybe like a vision, like a very long term vision. I think what everyone is trying to build right now is an autonomous coder. I think we're a lot closer to a tool that can autonomously code with let's say quasi-technical or a purely non-technical person just instructing what to do. Like let's imagine a product manager that has his own uh, model that is fully capable of doing what a senior or a junior, like probably a junior right now, like a senior engineer can do. Like pretty much it eliminates a need for a programmer. So I think all of those AI labs are basically trying to accomplish something that is close or is an autonomous coder. And there are a few indications of this. Like the first one is that the most usage in enterprise and generally of AI is software engineers using the AI to code. The next thing is that there's a lot of money actually spent on the coding AIs, and Anthropic has the whole like coding product. And that's why it's also the best, as we can also see here. It's projected to be the best model for coding for quite a while. I also feel that the deals that Google is starting to make with some nuclear power plants are also indicative of the fact that they want to lock in the cost of running the models, and they want to lock in the cost on such a level that it will be cheaper or equally costly to run a model versus to run a software engineer. So looking at 2026, I do see like all around focus around AI, but I do see the most progress in coding. I do see all of those other companies that really want to be in the race to start also securing their own energy deals somewhere down the line. So pretty much, I do believe that if any of these labs fail to actually jump on this train and start securing energy costs, like hedging energy costs, they will just fall behind. They'll be irrelevant 2 years down the line, or even faster. So now I think we're entering the final phase of the race, where we have a few models that are pretty much on par with Anthropic being at the top. And if Anthropic is able to sustain it and able to actually secure the energy deals, I think they could enjoy a really nice lead over all the other labs in the race towards the autonomous coder. Like, I may be wrong here. Like, coding is not really my expertise, but I do see an obvious benefit, at scale benefit, of having an autonomous coder as a first step towards something bigger. And since all of those projects really like to be broken into small steps and pivots, I think that no one is actually talking on a daily basis about AGI. I think they're all talking about autonomous coder. And it will become more apparent and more obvious as we move through 2026. And yeah, pretty much that's all for 2026. As you see, you've got a pretty interesting predictions around Western Hemisphere, uh, possible new developments around the world, and I think what is my most risky prediction, also probably the one that I will adjust throughout the year, is the midterms in the U.S. We are entering the campaign year. It'll be extremely interesting to see what will be the topic of discussion in some of those states, because it's not only about the civil war between the woke and the conservative. Like, most people don't really care about that, but I see some of the most nuanced topics being brought up. For example, where is the return of manufacturing in the Rust Belt? And, well, this is probably a very difficult topic, and will be brought up by a lot of Democrats in those states. So definitely, this will be an interesting race. It will be a turbulent one with a lot of swings, a lot of volatility, because the nation is extremely divided. It's extremely close, and yep, I think it will take a lot of focus on us prediction market traders this year, outside of all the geopolitics stuff that is happening. So maybe as a bonus, the 11th prediction is that we'll be extremely busy this year. I thought 2025 was busy. I think 2026 will beat it, and we'll have plenty of various markets, be it elections, be it geopolitics. Like, we already have such a number of markets on a daily basis that it's even hard to come through them. Yeah, but that's actually good, right? Because there are a lot of opportunities, there are a lot of mispricings, because if no one can actually track those markets accurately, then chances are at least some of them are mispriced. So if you also want to follow 2026, if you think we are living in a extremely interesting times. I think doing like monitoring the situation without monitoring prediction markets uh, is pretty much useless these days. So if you want to hop on with me on this journey as I trade, as I predict, and as I write my articles on profitnotes.com, and also some loose thoughts on my X, don't forget to subscribe, click that like button, go on my pages, and there's nothing we can do to make the world different. So we can at least see what will be in the future, right? Thanks for staying here. I hope you like the predictions. Let me know if you have different opinions or if you have your own spicy prediction for 2026. And see you soon in another video.